Hey guys, it's Ivory. Welcome back to my channel where I talk about all things from mental health and wellness to days in my life. If you are not already subscribed, then hit that subscribe button so you can come back and join the family. Speaking of subscribers, wow guys, you all have done an amazing job of liking, sharing, watching my videos in the time where I was not posting any new videos, and in that little bit of time, I did gain 100 subscribers. So at this moment, I am at 218 subscribers. For me, that is a huge deal. I appreciate each and every single one of you. I thank you so much for trusting in me and coming back to my channel and wanting to see what I put out. Looking at the numbers, it looks like most people have been interested in my how to become a psychologist and frequently asked questions about being a psychologist videos. So if that's you, please comment down below and let me know what you're hoping to see from me in the future, because I always want to put out content that's going to be relevant to you and that you're going to find helpful. So let me know what it is that you're hoping to see from me. For those of you who are new, hi, my name is Ivory and I am a licensed clinical psychologist who specializes in neuropsychology. I make videos about mental health in order to make topics in mental health and psychology more accessible to people and more relatable to people. Today's video, I'm going to be addressing some common myths and misconceptions about therapists and psychologists and therapy in general. So stay tuned. So myth number one is that all therapists and psychologists are trained exactly the same and practice exactly the same. And this is kind of a general one. But really what it's getting at is that a lot of people feel that if they have seen one therapist and they did not like it or did not like the way that that therapist practiced or just didn't like that therapist, then therapy is not for them. And that is completely not the case. We're all trained and specialized in different areas. I mean, sure, we have our standards of things that we need to be trained in, but someone may specialize in psychodynamic theory, someone may specialize in cognitive behavioral therapy, someone may specialize in dialectical behavioral therapy. So just because you saw one therapist who you didn't quite vibe with and you didn't feel like therapy was particularly helpful, that doesn't necessarily mean that therapy isn't for you. You may want to find a different therapist who you feel connected with better and who you feel like you actually do vibe with. And it may be the case that also you may want to try a different type of therapy. And a lot of people don't know that there are different types of therapy. So just because one didn't work out for you doesn't mean that you should just throw the whole thing in the garbage. Something that I often say to people is, if you go and get your hair cut and that particular barber didn't cut your hair the way that you want it, do you then say that, well, getting my hair cut isn't for me? Probably not. You're probably just gonna go to a different barber. Same thing if you go to a mechanic and maybe they don't fix your car quite the way that you wanted them to. You'll go find a different mechanic. So same type of thing with therapy. There is nothing wrong with saying, look, I don't like this therapist, or I don't really feel that this type of therapy is for me. Let me see what else is out there. Myth number two is that all therapists and psychologists try to put a label on you. Now, I completely understand why people feel this way. We do have labels for different types of disorders. If you look in the DSM or the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, you will see that there are different labels with different criteria for different disorders. Now, a lot of times insurance companies actually do require us to diagnose something in order for them to pay for your treatment with us. If you have a good therapist and a good psychologist, they are not going to let that label define you. Sure, labels do help us to categorize people and to know what we might expect or what type of treatment will be best, but I never go into a session with a patient or go into any kind of interaction with a person saying, this is this person's diagnosis, this is exactly who they are, and treat them that way. If you have a good therapist and psychologist, then they will treat you as a person. They will acknowledge that as a person, there are so many different things that make you unique. My goal is to always, no matter what kind of diagnosis you have coming in or what kind of diagnosis I may have to put down on paper, my goal is to always understand who you are as a person and the individual factors that make you unique. Myth number 3 is that a big part of therapy when you come is that you are going to be asked to tell me what you see in this ink blot. These look familiar? A big part of why this is kind of commonly thought about therapists and psychologists is because you often see these ink blots in movies and TV shows when you see someone going to therapy. Do some psychologists pull out those ink blots and ask you to tell them what you see? Yes, of course. It is a test that we use, we have at our disposal, but is that likely going to be what you do when you go to therapy? Probably not. Myth number 4 is that psychologists and therapists are constantly reading people. Let's be clear. No, we do not read minds. When I say reading people, I mean that we're constantly evaluating you or really trying to get into your brain and thinking about exactly what you're saying and why you're saying that and how it relates to your childhood and how pathological you are and all of that. No, absolutely not. We are not constantly reading people. Do you realize how exhausting that would be? First of all, I do not work for free. Now, could I say that being a psychologist has helped my relationships and my communication with people and me being open and accepting and compassionate for people? Yeah, I think it has, but I'm not constantly trying to use any kind of therapy skills on you or evaluate you or do anything like that. I promise you, psychologists are normal people. Myth number 5 is that progress in therapy happens very, very quickly and that you will be healed after 1 or 2 sessions. Now, I want to create realistic expectations so that you can go into therapy knowing what to expect. This is not something where you go 1 or 2 times, figure everything out, and bam, things are great. Things can feel a lot worse in therapy before they feel better. And that's because you're working through some things that you probably haven't uncovered about yourself or you haven't confronted about yourself or about your past, and you're really working to develop new skills. And in order to develop new skills, that takes time. Secondly, there is a process that happens when you go to therapy. So you don't just jump right in most times. Most times, the first session is like an intake session, so they can ask you why it is that you're coming to therapy, what it is that you're hoping to get out of this, and really just to kind of figure out who you are. So that can take the whole first session of just figuring out why it is you're here. And then a lot of the times in the second session, you will work with that therapist, hopefully, again, to develop goals for your treatment and to develop an understanding of how it is that you know you're progressing in treatment and how it is that you know that you're not, and when it is that you might want to have another conversation with them to say, hey, let's readdress some of these goals or reassess what my goals are, make new goals. So you're working together in order to figure out what it is that you want to get out of therapy. And then you start some real work. We're already at session 3. So if you go to therapy 1 or 2 times and you're like, this didn't work. Yeah, it's not gonna work in 1 or 2 sessions. You need to continue to go back. And something that people don't realize is that you can't just work on yourself in therapy. You also have to go home throughout the week, do some homework, continue doing those exercises, and continue building on those skills that you learned in therapy throughout the week. We cannot expect for things to drastically improve if we're only spending 60 minutes per week working on ourselves within that therapy session. There is work that has to be done outside. Well, those are 5 common myths that I hear about therapists, psychologists and therapy in general. I probably will make a part 2 because there are tons of things that I hear, and some of them are true, some of them are not. We'll see. I am gonna play Mythbuster another time. If there are things that you have heard or have wondered about therapists, psychologists, therapy in general, drop them down in the comments below and I can try to address those in a future video. As always, check in with yourself. Is your cup full? Thanks so much for watching. Bye.